Battle of the Sexes comes to us from Little Miss Sunshine directors Jonathan Dayton and Valerie Faris. Which is great, as these guys have only directed 3 feature films in their careers. The film is based on the tennis match of the same name from 1973 between Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs, which blew the doors wide open for women tennis players to be accepted in the public eye. As it is with biographical sports films, these events are pretty well documented and out in the public knowledge. But what the film does is give us a lot of insight into the life of mainly Billie Jean King, as she struggles with her sexuality and the position of women in sports during the 1970s. Now, the film is mainly focused on Billie Jean King, played by Emma Stone, that many are going to argue is her best work to date, and older tennis star Bobby Riggs, played by an equally incredible Steve Carell. I really think it's a matter of time before we see Steve Carell accepting an Oscar at the Academy Awards. Both actors are the main draw, and they are both at career bests, which I think will make a lot of people happy. The film does take a little while to get going, as we mainly set up the conflict with Billie Jean King and major tennis associations which are run by men. The setup, I think, is the weaker part of the film, as we're trying to establish the time period and how women were viewed in the eyes of men running these sports. We get a bit of Steve Carell's Bobby Riggs peppered throughout, but it does take a little while for him to get involved in Billie Jean King's story and what the film is all about. For a good portion of the film, their lives are fairly separated until Riggs cracks up a plan to challenge the best female tennis players. But once the film gets into the sports drama side of things, where we see the tennis matches being set up and the momentum build up to these big events, the film really starts to crank into gear and becomes quite riveting with some really well shot tennis matches. I can imagine some viewers may find the more cliche aspects of the film a bit of an annoyance, as it can rely on a lot of the big, momentous speeches and dialogue that often come with sports dramas like this, where the main character is designed to be put on a podium as a hero, which for sure is important for this scenario, and luckily Billie Jean King has a lot of complexity and depth to her, which makes this film a lot more interesting to watch, as she struggles with her sexuality in the public eye, where being a lesbian is frowned upon. These doubts with her sexuality do help build her character up in the first act, but as the film goes on and we focus more on the tennis match between King and Riggs, this personal side of King's life tends to go more to the wayside, where it's only really peppered throughout the film at later moments. Which, look, that's fine. This movie is more about King's arc and overcoming that male prejudice of the time, but for aspects that are so heavily focused earlier on in the film, it's just strange to see them become more insignificant to the film and her character. As I said earlier, Steve Carell is at a career best here with his performance, and although Bobby Riggs doesn't get nearly as much screen time as King, every moment with Steve Carell is such a delight, where he'll go from big flamboyant speeches about his gambling habits or trying to act as the male chauvinistic pig he puts on for the viewers. Everything is larger than life, but believable, as hey, the real Bobby Riggs acted exactly like this. The dialogue does tend to be a little on the nose at times, and like the more cliche aspects of the film, may come across a bit annoying for some viewers, as I would have preferred something a little bit more natural and realistic, despite how crazy and eccentric everything in the film is. Sarah Silverman, who is in the film, tends to be the voice for a lot of this on-the-nose dialogue, and sometimes it works, as she is someone I do enjoy watching, but other times you might be left wishing they'd tried something else, or just cut those lines altogether. I have to say though, the totally underrated Alan Cummings is actually in the film, and every time he shows up he is just perfect. Acting as King's fashion designer, he just gets some really brilliant lines that are just pulled off even better thanks to the energy and effort that he puts into them. The film, as to be expected, is gorgeous, shot with a lot of natural sunlight and colour that just radiates the feel of the 1970s perfectly. This is probably one of the best looking 70s set films I've seen in a long time. A huge amount of credit needs to go to the costume and production designers, as everything is picture perfect to the era. Battle of the Sexes is a retrospective film that has been made purposely for today, and recalls a lot of parallels and conversations that people are having right now about gender inequality. So for those that do see it, I believe it's going to be an important talking point for them. The film won't be for everyone, and the more cliche aspects can drag the film down just a little bit, but for a real uplifting true life story that is currently relevant, mixed with some incredible performances, Battle of the Sexes is definitely worth the price of admission. Battle of the Sexes gets an 8 out of 10 from me. Guys, I hope you liked this review. If you did like this review, do remember to hit the thumbs up button, leave a comment down below in the comments section. Have you seen Battle of the Sexes, or are you planning to see the film? Do let me know in the comments section. If you would like to subscribe to the channel, do hit the subscribe button with a little bell next to it, which will remind you when the Mono Report uploads new content. And don't forget, you can follow the Mono Report on Facebook and Twitter at the Mono Report. Thank you so much, guys. Don't forget to stay right here for your Mono Fix. Bye, guys.